Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of a psychotherapist and an attorney. I'm Brooke Brigham, I'm an attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham, I'm the therapist.
So today we're going to be talking about the Netflix documentary, the Harry and Meghan. I'm not sure the exact title of it. Okay,
it's called Harry and Meghan.
Harry and Meghan. Which is a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
We actually, episode 12, we did an episode about Meghan Markle, which, talked about Harry, obviously, too, quite a bit. And so when we recorded that, we hadn't seen this yet. So we have fresh information.
Yes.
Fresh meat here. It's 6 episodes, 6 hours long, so there's a lot. So we are going to try to, go through it quickly, highlight some of the things that we didn't know before, because I learned a lot of new things.
Yes, I did too.
So this is the first time that they have had control, a creative control here. Like this is what they were paid $100 million for, to do this and to basically mention it all.
Yes. Well, so what I thought was so interesting when I was thinking about this, watching this, and I thought, God damn it, is it me? Because is this Casey Anthony all over again, where it's like, yes, I'm seeing this. I'm on your side. I'm with you. These documentaries are really persuasive.
Yeah.
And I think that, off the bat, it's so interesting how people feel about Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan, because I remember when we recorded episode 12, Steve, my husband, and also our producer, he was like, oh, did you guys rag on her? And I said, no, not really. I said, if you take a step back and kind of look at the full picture, it's hard to rag on her because nobody knows what it's like. Nobody knows how it feels. Anything. And I really do feel like this story is... And this is my whole theory of all of this.
Okay.
I feel like Harry and Meghan, the show, is really, it's not about Meghan, that it was about Harry.
Yeah.
It's about this boy who, did not choose this life at all, that was born into it. He was lucky enough to have this amazing, wonderful mother who was beloved and loved, but very much just, his mother, that everyone says in the documentary that they had this real connection, that she was very much her son, and that they were very, very close. And you're 12 years old and it's like your mother died, and here you are having to mourn the world. And he was very open and honest about the fact that he wasn't allowed to grieve. He didn't have time. They didn't send him to some grief therapist or do any of that. It was on your way to, go do this interview. And then all these people have to ask you these questions like, do you miss your mom? Are you sad? And so here he kind of has this, he goes off and he finds himself, and he finds that being in other cultures and other places in the world away from all of this is really where he shines. And then he meets this woman who's very much like his mother, and he falls in love with her, and he's seeing that they're doing to her what they did his own mother. And he swoops in and says, F that, I'll give up anything. Let me go and do this. And it's, all he's ever really wanted is to have a family, and now he has that. I don't know. I feel like it's Harry's story. I really bought into listen, people can think that I am a nut. Yes, I believe Casey Anthony's story, and yes, I believe Harry and Meghan's story too, right? Where I do believe these are two people that truly, truly love each other and want to be together, and want to be together on their terms. And I think this is the part that upsets people so much is that, and why they think Harry, is controlled by Meghan is, again, it's also about an ambitious woman who wants to do big things, and somehow that's bad.
But also, the thing is, this is about this man who is willing to buck, hundreds, thousands of years, I don't know, of tradition. Mm-hmm. I keep looking for reasons to dislike Meghan. And for me, it's really hard. And I think a lot of she has some quirkiness about her that really has nothing to do with being married to him. She grew up in LA. She was an actress. If you don't know, and you know very well.
Yes, I do.
I feel like she's your typical actress who grew up in LA, went to all the nice schools, ran with a fancy crowd. She just is different.
Yes.
She's not like, Kate Middleton, who was sort of, the salt of the earth British commoner, even though she obviously she went to these fancy schools and stuff, but she wasn't, she wasn't princess material, in the beginning. And actually Meghan came into the family, from what I saw in this documentary, really trying, and no one helped her. No one told her what to do. She had to figure stuff out. Trying to wear the right thing, do the right thing, say the right thing, be a certain way around these people. And you can tell in the beginning, she had said, I've always wanted a big family. It was so exciting to go to the first Christmas with all these people and all this activity. And Harry said, I'm just so lucky to have found someone who, loves me, and I love her, and she's willing to live this life with me. And they were both all in it. Yeah, they really were. And you can't blame them. Blame the royal family. Blame that. One of the things that really stuck out is, I guess, we're focused on racism in the United States. And, I don't know a lot about, racism in Europe. And of course, we're not taught that in school. We're not taught very much history unless you really major in history or, whatever. I was shocked at the extent of the slave trade of the British Empire, and also the fact that it was ran by the royal family. That would be the equivalent of, I know Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, these people owned slaves, but they weren't the head of the slave trade. It's all awful, but it's taking it up the next level. So they're actually next level racist. And so I was like, wow, that kind of explains a lot.
Yeah. Well, I want to get back to the whole Meghan and Hollywood thing, because I do have some experience with this. And just, this is a thing, and I'm not criticizing actors, but actors are interesting. They're an interesting breed. I have been to parties with actors, famous actors, and it's interesting, they don't do very well with certain things, because you've got to understand, as an actor, it forces you're forced to show up on a set and really be very vulnerable and embody a new person, embody a new, identity, and be that for several hours a day, every day, and then leave, and leave that. And when you are an actor on a show, you are catered to, you are, things are handed to you, things are given to you, it is this whirlwind. And I think you're right, that she being and growing up in Hollywood and being on the set of Fresh Prince, and because married to
Married with Children. Our father was the lighting director.
Oh yeah, right. I'm getting that mixed up with someone else. But I think that just being in that world and being an actor, I think that that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of that quirkiness. So when we see her, when people think that she's putting on airs, it's like, no, she's trying to play this part. Right. I think that she's
trying to act out her feelings or something.
I think that very much she saw this because she gave up her career to do this. And so I think she saw this as, oh, I'm going to give up my career. I'm going to, this is my new part. This is my new role. This is how I'm going to play it. This is how I'm going to do it. Right. Even when she was talking about not wearing bright colors or anything like that, I think that actor mind, I think that's how she approached it and did it. And so actors are just, she grew up differently. She had a different kind of life. And so
she went to some fancy schools, and then, she seemed to have, like, on the documentary, she has a lot of kind of fancy New York friends. And she's
but different. She was also, she grew up in these fancy schools. I don't think she was that, because they go to their old house in Miracle Mile, and I also lived there too. I mean, it wasn't like she lived in this fancy neighborhood, but I think that just growing up, I feel like when you grow up in a city like LA, or someone who grows up in New York, or someone who grows up in San Francisco, right? You're different. You're different than the country kid. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. But yeah, and I just thought it was very interesting about, I think that they very bluntly talked about how, there's this unwritten contract between the institution and the press. And that it was very much from the beginning, the idea is that we're paying you, so you get to be our, you have to perform for us,
pose for us,
and
something,
do all of these things for us, and then we'll write stories about, we'll write nice stories about you or mean stories. So they set it up very early from the beginning that this is how it works. That, like, if you're a royal, you don't complain, you do what you're told, and, you get to live this great life, or whatever it is, whatever you think it is, that you're okay to be exploited. And we see a scene of Diana going to a photographer and saying, like, hey, I've given you all these photos. Like, I want to eat lunch with my kids. Like, can you just leave us alone? And again, that reporter, you could hear the reporter saying, like, well, I wasn't one of those earlier reporters. And it's like, so I'm supposed to please every single one of you people all the time. And then she becomes, and I think that's also the way in which they framed their engagement. It was very much the way our media framed the engagement. Was like, ladies, sorry, taken.
Prince is off the market.
Because again, we have this crazy idea that marrying a prince is what every little girl dreams of. And somehow she won the hand of Harry, and therefore that makes her, special, or makes her this or makes her that. But we're already setting it up to want to secretly hate her. Do you know what I mean? It's like even very different than, oh, these two people got married or these two people are engaged now. And then on top of that, she has this family, and with these, Samantha Markle, and has these complicated situations, and it's just a mess.
Yeah. And the problem started, as soon as they got engaged, and, all the way leading up, and all the drama to the point where her father doesn't even attend the wedding, which is so sad. And Harry said he feels like he shoulders the burden of that, because if it wasn't for her marrying him, she'd still have her father. Yeah. And that's a horrible feeling all around, like, for everybody involved.
Yeah. Well, one thing I thought was very interesting was that Meghan was an activist, right? Before she was part of the royals. But what was so shocking to everyone was that the royals apparently only support non-controversial issues. And so she supported very controversial issues. Again, no one told her. No one told her that that was a no-no. And I always think that's so interesting because you would think like it's such a trope in movies to do the whole makeover training of someone, right, how to be a lady, how to do this. And that the fact that there's absolutely no training whatsoever for someone coming into the family. And I think it's a real setup. It really is, because it's almost like, yeah, we're going to throw you in the deep end and you sink or swim, kid. And we're not going to give you any tools or any help whatsoever. And you figure it out. It's like this weird challenge.
It is like a challenge. And it's almost like, yeah, like it's almost like they don't even want to acknowledge that it's an institution.
Yes.
You know, because if they had to teach you all this stuff and do all this stuff, I think a lot of people would be like, what?
It's a job.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So this is the royal family. So
yeah, God forbid that you actually write that down in a manual somewhere that you need to do this, this, and this for people. The whole thing with the dad leading up to the wedding and the letter. And I think that obviously this lawsuit gets carried through was, you know, they got a hold of the letter that she wrote to her dad and printed it, but then blacked out parts of it.
Yeah, to make her look bad.
Yeah, to basically make her look like she's this awful person. And then and then she finds out days before about that. And also she said, like, leading up to the wedding, things were starting already. She was getting death threats. She was, you know, it was already starting to get scary.
Well, yeah. And the press was already doing racist headlines. And I mean, yeah, started right away.
Yes. Then we get to, that's all the lead up to the engagement and the wedding and all of that. Do you have anything else for that part?
I'm trying to think if there's anything new that was revealed in episode 3. I can't remember.
So they have this wedding, which everyone's seen. It's really beautiful. She looks great. They're very happy. Everything's great. They do get into how, and this was always the story, right? Because there's a tale that's told in these stories, which is that Meghan is part of this new generation, that the way they had their wedding was different because they had a gospel choir and they had, Meghan gave a speech and all of these things. And it's just interesting to see how people react to that, because that's change. It's change, that she came in and wanted to change some things or be herself, and people got mad. People got upset. And I also think this is the other thing with Harry, which I'm really excited to read Harry's book, Spare, because I think for Harry too, basically your entire life, you've been the spare. You're not important. You're meaningless. Like, you'll never become king. You'll never be this. You'll never be that. So you're the spare. And I think he was like, okay, great. I'm just going to do my thing and live my life. And when he does, he marries, this woman, very independent, and he's like, okay, I'm going to do my thing. You guys don't care. But it's almost like, well, no, wait a second. But even though you're never going to be king and you'll always be the sideline, we expect you to still do everything we want you to do.
Yeah.
So, and I think this post-wedding, the tour of Australia, I think this was so interesting.
Well, it was identical to what happened to Diana. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they go on this tour to Australia, and she's incredibly popular. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves her. And so the royals got upset because she was on the cover of every tabloid.
Yeah.
And they were like, wait a minute, we can't have this.
Yeah.
The principals,
yes.
the people who are directly in line to the throne are the people who we want the attention on, not on, these two.
She's supposed to be a supporting act, right? That's what they said. She's supposed to be a supporting act. She and Harry are, again, back to the spare. He's the spare. You're not supposed to be the star. You're supposed to be over here. And this happens all the time. This does happen where someone gets more attention, more popularity, they're more interesting. And I think that Meghan has a bit of what Diana had, which was this relatability. And then they show these clips of Diana talking about how it was almost like she was upset that people were paying attention to her, that people did like her, because it made Charles upset. Like Charles was mad at her, right? Because people wanted to shake her hand, not his.
Yeah, and they were upset that Harry and Meghan were overshadowing Will and Kate.
Yeah,
they're supposed. William is the person who's born to do this. We don't want to see Meghan on the front page of everything.
Yeah. So then immediately, Meghan becomes a quote unquote diva. That becomes the news story. That's what happens. And it's just crazy. They built her up. They talked about her. They raved about her. And then they started tearing her down.
And then the racism began to intensify.
Yes. And sexism, racism, sexism, so many things. And poor Meghan, she's pregnant on this tour, and so you can imagine how crappy you feel when you're pregnant, having to like tour around Australia everywhere. And then you're getting, then you're being told that become the Duchess difficult. Yeah. And then they start associating her with drugs, terrorism, crime-ridden neighborhoods, making these awful, I don't know, did we talk about this before, that My Girl's Straight Outta Compton, and
they're trying to portray her as the angry black woman.
Yeah, that Brits, what is it? They said Brits won't be overtly racist.
Right.
But the way in which they're racist is they say things like Straight Outta Compton or they mentioned another neighborhood, but just associating her with things that are like, she has darker skin, terrorism,
right.
Like, oh, she grew up in this crime-ridden neighborhood. She's this, she's that.
And she also talked about how, like, in this country, the tabloids are, less believable. Mm-hmm. But over there, they're not.
Yeah.
She thought that, if it's just in a tabloid, like, no one's going to believe this. And then she realized, no, they all believe this.
Because there's the Royal Rota, right? Which is that there are, 6 or 7 papers.
Like the Daily Mail, the Mirror, the Sun.
And they point out that of those 7 or 8 papers, that only one is a real newspaper, or it's like a real hard-hitting newspaper, that they're all just this kind of crapola. But because even I'll go on the Daily Mail's website, and even I'm like, God, this is awful. I can't read all this. This is terrible, right?
And then the whole thing about trading stories.
Yes.
So, like, each principal person in the royal family, the senior royals, they have a whole office that, deals with all of their PR and everything. And, like, if one royal was getting too much negative attention, they would trade a story from another royal to get that person off the papers. And it was all just intentional. And Harry, I guess Harry was saying a long time ago, he and William had made this agreement that they would never do this. Mm-hmm. But of course, then I think William's office started to doing it. And he said this famous split between them was because William's office broke that promise.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of Meghan.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is where she starts to talk about, right? She said, I start disappearing inside of myself, thoughts of suicide. And I remember the Oprah interview, and she talked about this, which I thought I liked how they incorporated the Oprah interview into this 6-part series, but they didn't repeat a lot of these same things. So when I was watching the Oprah interview year plus ago, I remember thinking, like, how did she get to that place of depression, right? Like that, I was just like, oh, that's fast, right? That she went from where she is now to really having thoughts of suicide. And I thought they did a much better job here, obviously because they have more time, to really explain how she got there, right? So she's got all these pregnancy hormones, and she's exhausted, and she's being criticized constantly. And it's almost like the institution is gaslighting her, telling her, like, they're pulling all these strings behind her. And
she said she asked for help, and she wasn't allowed to get help because they were concerned how that would look.
yes.
And they basically told her, why can't you just deal with it?
Yeah. Which is, I think, what they told Diana.
Yeah. And like Harry was used to it. He'd been dealing with the institution his whole life. He was trained,
Yeah.
not to really worry about it or worry what people thought or whatever. But to her, it was like just crushing. Like everybody, like everybody hates me.
Yeah.
And then she said she knew that it would stop if she simply wasn't there.
Yeah. Which is
That's scary.
really, really dark. Really dark. And I think that Harry in that moment, see, this is why in that moment when he finds out that his brother betrayed him, whether his brother, whether it was his brother's idea or not, obviously William had to co-sign it. Like William had to, say yes to it. And that I think for him in that moment, it was realizing like, oh, wow, my brother who I've been through all of this with my entire life, the one maybe, and I would think that really, I think his brother has really been the only person that he could ever go to or get support from or any of those kinds of things, right? And so if you're Harry, what else are you going to do? You're going to choose your wife. You're going to choose this, choose this woman who's right here with you. Like she's your family now.
Yeah. He was barely vested in the institution to begin with, I think.
So then they get into the baby shower drama like they write articles about how she had this star-studded, expensive
Paid
party.
for by her friends at work.
Yes. Which I'm sure was a nice, listen, Meghan, this is the other thing too. Meghan's circles were obviously enough that she had a friend who knew Harry.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the thing is that she does run in these circles and she was on Suits. I'm sorry that, you make a certain amount of money, you can get certain doors open. Like she was already in this.
Serena Williams is her best friend.
Yeah. I don't know how that happened, but
I mean,
yeah. Anyway, so May 6th, 2019, I don't know why I wrote that down. Archie is born.
all right.
And then I write chimp photo. So this was this photo, right? Where they were like, so someone published a photo of
It's a cartoon.
of two people holding the hands of a chimp
Walking out of the hospital.
and someone said something to the effect of, oh, here are the new pictures of the baby.
Yeah,
which is just awful.
They were giving her grief about,
Oh yeah, that whole
from
thing.
time immemorial, whenever a royal baby was born. They were born at the same hospital and they come out literally 8 hours after giving birth. The parents have to come out on these steps with their baby. And Meghan said no. Well, she didn't say no at first. Well, she was having the baby at a different hospital.
And she had a different doctor.
And they said, well, we can't. And she's like, well, can't we do it over here? And they're like, well, we can't secure that location. And she's like, well, I can't just go across town to pose on these steps. And they ended up 2 days later.
Yeah.
Only 2 days later.
Yeah.
Posing for a picture. I don't know where it was, in the palace or something.
Well, and that was the other thing. They talked a little bit about this on Oprah, but here I feel like I really understand it a lot more, which is because Meghan explained it on Oprah that, one of the reasons why she wanted to wait was that she wanted to show the photo to the people that she loved. Like she felt like, I feel like my mom should see my child before, my mom and my friends before the whole world. And so I was like, oh, this is a little different. I don't know. And again, haters of her will say, see, she's changing stories. She can't get it straight. But I
thought that story was talking about like, just anytime you wanted to release any kind of photo, you had to go through the institution. I felt like this thing, they were giving her an ultimatum, like, no, you have to do it, at this hospital. We can't do it at this other hospital. And it's, traditionally, it's literally like 8 hours later.
Yeah.
You come outside and she just refused to do it.
Yeah. Well, and also what I love is they showed us like, this is Harry coming out with Diana. This is Kate with her babies. And each time the women look like, you know, I mean, everyone, if you've had a baby, you know, 8 hours after having a baby, you're just like, what? And like to then have to get dolled up and all.
Yeah, they all have hair. And
she also brought up another good point of one of the other reasons was she was worried because she was over 35. Like she was worried about having this high risk pregnancy. And that's the other thing is I feel like that's a bit of setting it up. Like, why did they let her see this doctor, right? Why couldn't they never went to her earlier and said, hey, this is going to be a problem if you work with this doctor. We've got to figure this out. You know, it's almost kind of like just waiting for it to all explode and being like, yeah, Meghan, sorry. You know, it's just, I don't know. And then, so Meghan talks about not doing well. And they parallel a lot of this to Diana and Diana talking about, you know, mental illness and this is when they first started having conversations about what needs to happen for this relationship to work. And it became very crystal clear to them that the palace, the institution, was not going to protect Meghan.
Right.
Like no matter what anyone did or say, no one was going to protect her. It wasn't. I mean, I think it would get better over time, but I think it would be that Meghan would have to conform so much and be miserable in order for it to work that, and I don't blame either one of these people. They were just both like, well, forget that. Harry's like, I'm the spare. They've been telling me I'm a spare my entire goddamn life. Like, why am I gonna, you know, reduce my life to nothing?
Right. For what?
For this.
I'm never going to be, I'm just going to be like this figurehead. Yeah. She said it was clear to the media that the palace wasn't going to protect her. So then the floodgates just burst and she was fed to the wolves because the palace was not going to tell the media to knock it off or they just didn't care. And then this is when the dad starts doing interviews about her and the royal family, which really does not help. And I'm sorry, I got a much better sense of Samantha Markle in this one versus any of the other ones with her. It's just, my God, that Samantha, it's talk about being angry and jealous of your sibling. Yeah.
Right? That it seems like, did Samantha also want to pursue acting? I get the sense that she was a bit of a mess, right? Because she has this daughter, the niece, who she had, you know, the mom. So I never knew this about Samantha Markle, but Samantha Markle had her daughter, and that the daughter was not raised by Samantha Markle, mm-hmm. was raised by the father and the father's mm-hmm. parents. Mm-hmm. So Samantha, you know, obviously has a lot going on here. And I think that she's always hated and been jealous of Meghan mm-hmm. for whatever reason. And my God, when she became a princess, the floodgates opened. So I think Samantha was in her father's ear. Like, come on, Dad, she doesn't care about us. Just get the money, get the money, get the money.
Totally.
But then they decide to sue the Daily Mail for publishing the private letter. And that was the catalyst to the unraveling.
Yeah, so this is when they go to
Canada,
Vancouver Island.
Yeah, so they went, and they talked about this in the Oprah interview. They went and they said, listen, let us move somewhere in the Commonwealth. We'll move to Canada. We'll move to Australia. We'll move here. We'll move there, South Africa. Just let us move. And if you don't, you know, if you're mad that we're taking, you know, if we're the supporting cast, then let us be the supporting cast and leave. And then they're like, no, you can't.
Yeah, because that would look bad, I guess. And and you know, throughout this entire documentary, there was this guy, Michael Olguin, I think is his name.
Is he the one that wrote Black and British?
Black and British. And, you know, he kept interjecting, and this was one of those points where he would interject about how, you know, the royal family, the palace, they were missing such a unique opportunity to connect with millions and millions and millions of people mm-hmm. who live in the Commonwealth who are Black and brown.
Yeah.
You know, and like, here's this woman who, you know, represents them, loves them. Mm-hmm. She, you know, they love her. it was such a missed opportunity.
Yes.
To connect with the younger generation, with immigrants and people in the Commonwealth, whatever. And they just fucked it all up.
Yeah.
Just like, we're like, no, that's not part of our brand.
Yeah. Well, and this is the part that is so hard about this, right? Which is, I'm sure William felt a tremendous amount of pressure to marry someone like Kate, and that he needed to do this. And so Harry's here, the quote unquote spare, and I think Harry was like, I'm just going to, whoever I fall in love with, that's who I'm going to be with. And that's who I'm going to marry. And so he does this. And really, I do remember when they first got engaged, it was everything everyone was talking about. People were excited, especially here, right? In America,
but were they seemed to be as excited.
Yeah, people were excited. And I think that people wanted to see this happen because it was like, oh my God, she's an actress. She's Black. She's, does all of this work. She's different. She's personable. She's this, she's that, right? Like, people were super excited about this. And they would show all these interviews on the street of people talking about it. Like, the Brits were excited. Everybody was really excited. And the hatred and the anger that people started to feel, that wasn't the sentiment of how people felt about her. That was the influence of the tabloids.
Yeah, it was created.
And just pounding and pounding and pounding. And it's just like, God, they really, I don't know. They just could not win. They could not win. The only way to win was to just comply.
Just hang back and do nothing. Do what you're told. Yeah.
Yeah, but don't be nice. Be charming, but don't be too charming.
Right.
Be this, but don't be too much of this. Like, don't be.
Yeah. The bottom line was it was just not acceptable in their institution for Harry and Meghan to upstage anybody.
Yes.
Especially William and Kate. And that was the bottom line. And they were just being themselves.
Yeah.
And they were upstaging these people. And what are they supposed to do about that?
Yeah.
They were just living their life, being themselves.
And asking, like, just let us go somewhere far away.
They even said that they would live somewhere else in the Commonwealth and be self-supporting.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's
make
right.
their own money. Like that, you can't get a better deal than that.
Yeah.
Yet they were still going to work, on behalf of the monarchy.
So then they do go to Canada. They are living in Canada for a while. And this story, this is very interesting. Because I will say that this entire time, they've never really said anything about the Queen. I always get the sense, obviously, because this was written about how much the Queen really liked Meghan, that they really enjoyed each other. And that was, of course, bad because the Queen shouldn't like Meghan more than she likes Kate,
Right.
And they talk about that, but this was the first time I heard him say anything about Grandma. And I'm trying to figure out, like, how much was this Grandma's call or not, but they're in Canada and he was going to go back and see the Queen, his basically grandma, and it got blocked that Harry couldn't see his grandmother all of a sudden. Like, and that's the part that's also so interesting about this whole thing, which is Grandma is the boss, but she's his grandma, right? And so he's communicating with her saying, hey, can I talk to you about something? She's like, of course, I'd love to see you. Bring the family,
But then that also gives you the sense that if they were able to block him, because he wanted to go talk to her about what can we do to make this situation tenable for everybody. And the fact that they could get to her, block this, block him, I don't think she was really in charge. That's the impression that I got. I got the impression from this documentary that Charles was in charge. In addition to that being a great television show.
Yes.
Charles in charge. Because, he said that he wrote a letter to Charles and talked about all these different alternate plans. He said he did it for 2 years. He was lobbying Charles, writing him letters, saying that they would go to New Zealand, South Africa, Canada, or they would just relinquish their titles and I guess this was leaked. The letter was leaked. And so Charles kind of stopped negotiating with him.
Yeah.
Because it would make him look weak.
Yeah.
So, so it's like and then the visit to the Queen was blocked, and so then they're just kind of like.
But then what? So what got leaked was that they mentioned that they would take a reduced role, and Harry says that was the only thing that he knows that it got leaked because this was never something that was ever discussed somewhere else.
Yeah, well, because he said that if there was no public funds supporting them, then the press would have no interest in them and no right to harass them, because that was the press's whole thing. You get paid to live this lavish lifestyle. We get to do what we want to do. And I think the plans to go to South Africa, I think he said they were actually approved, but then that got leaked, so that got scrapped. So it's all about how it looks to everybody else. And so clearly the palace had lost control over Harry and Meghan, and they didn't want that to come out, to admit that.
Well, and then that's when he says, that the institution was willing to lie for William, but not for him. And again, it comes back to this idea, that they're going to continue to do what Charles, William, these people that are directly going to be the direct line, that they're going to protect him over Harry, and Harry rightfully is like, well, forget that, right? Yeah. They realized it would never end.
And then he did say, Harry said something about, and this kind of ties into the kind of how dire their situation really was, although,
yes, I know.
It's hard to sympathize someone fleeing to
Montecito.
Well, actually, it wasn't Montecito. It was LA.
Yeah.
And then ultimately Montecito. But it really was, he said that his whole life, his father controlled the purse strings. So I don't think he really had any money of his own.
Yeah.
Any control. I know he had an inheritance from Diana. That was probably the only thing of his own that he had. And I don't know how much that is, but I really think that, he's had to play this game to get money, basically.
Which is, pretty common in wealthy families.
Yeah.
And so this was the part that I thought was interesting, is that Harry says, listen, I'm the one that chose it. I chose to leave. I made this choice, not Meghan, but Meghan gets blamed for it. And then they call it Megxit. And I think that this keeps coming back to the sexism and the racism. And again, I think the common criticism that you hear from people about Meghan is that she's an ambitious woman, and she she wanted to be in charge and do things her way. And again, I think that this is so common what happens to women, which is Meghan decided and Harry decided, I'm not willing to sacrifice Meghan's feelings and her life and being miserable for this and to show up. And I think this is exactly what he saw with his parents, right? Because Charles never gave two shits about Diana. He married her, because it was what he's supposed to do, and basically told her immediately, like, hey, I'm still having this affair with this other woman, so forget you. And, he saw his father do that to his mother and was like, oh, hell no, I'm not going to do this to her. Yeah. But also, again, one thing that I've heard when people are criticizing Meghan is a lot of people feel like she's, she saw herself as this Oprah. She wanted to be like the Oprah of England and, change things and do things differently. And she wanted to be all of these things. And it's like, really what she wanted was that she saw this opportunity to use this platform to make real change. And again, but women aren't supposed to do that. Women aren't supposed to be ambitious. Women aren't supposed to want things. Women aren't supposed to feel, right? It keeps kind of coming back to this idea that every time the two of them stood up for themselves, they were, it was Meghan's fault. Now, this was also really interesting. So they figured out that really all of the Meghan hate was a series of bots.
Yes, this was interesting.
Yeah, 83 accounts
made up all of the...
Yeah, so it was 83 accounts that reached 17 million people. And they found it was a group of white women, including Samantha Markle.
Yeah, it's white middle-aged women.
Middle-aged women.
That was Meghan's nemesis.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird. But yeah, I could believe that a handful of accounts make up the vast majority of hate propaganda. I think that's true.
Yes.
In politics, I think it's true. But it was so amplified that you think, oh my God, there's all these people. No, it's really not.
And Samantha Markle claimed that her thing got hacked.
Yeah.
Which personally, I don't believe that for a second.
That's convenient.
Yeah. So this is where they get to the fleeing, right? Which is they came back to England March of 2020 to move on. Like this was their final.
It was
thing.
like their farewell week.
Yes.
Where they did like 5 appearances in 5 days and everybody fawned over them. And
And this is where Harry says that, the institution, which you said earlier, which is what it looks like versus what it feels like, right? Like it's always been about what it looks like versus what it feels like. So they're on their own. So March 2020, they go back to Canada. The royals basically pull their security. So this is what was talked on the Oprah thing that I was very confused about too, but now I see, right? That they were like, okay, well, you're not part of the monarchy anymore. Bye.
Yeah. Well, it was literally 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, everyone had found out where they were. Because I guess the first time they went there, no one knew where they were. They were able to keep their location private. But then when they went back for good, the press found out where they were. They had boats out, they're on this island. They had boats out in the water constantly trying to get pictures, people jumping fences. And then within 2 weeks, they also cut off their security. Yeah. They said March 31st, your security is cut off.
Yeah.
And again, they probably didn't have access to all their money or whatever. And they were scared.
Yeah.
They
have this baby. They have a less than 1 year old.
Yeah. They're scared for their safety, their kids' safety. And so that's, I guess that's where Tyler Perry comes in.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knew? And then we get these interviews with Tyler Perry. And, the thing is that Tyler Perry's been very vocal and honest about his own childhood and, his rough life. And I just think it's so interesting that even before all of this happened, he just saw Meghan, saw what she was getting into and kind of knew, right? Just had some instinct inside of him of like, you need some friends. I think he need something, you let me know. And he's obviously very wealthy and very powerful. I was just like, pretty classy, Tyler Perry.
He said that he recognized that feeling of not being protected or something, something along those lines.
Because I think he was Tyler. Yeah. Which I think Tyler Perry really understands on a visceral level. Yeah. So yes, they have the big escape to Tyler Perry's house, and then she's miscarries, which I never knew. I never knew she had a miscarriage from all the stress.
Yeah, I remember that. She wrote an article about it in.
That's right. Okay.
Some New York Times magazine or something.
So then there's the infamous Oprah interview, and then 2 or 3 days before the Oprah interview, the palace opens an investigation of bullying against Meghan, and that is, there's nothing more that can, please.
You mean that Meghan was bullying somebody?
No. So this is the way the institution was trying to protect themselves, which is, holy crap, they're going on Oprah. They're going to start these two are going to start spill the tea. Okay, let's show that we care. So we're going to quote unquote open an investigation. But obviously it's so ridiculous because as we can see, they did nothing for eons. And then now they're going to do it. So then we have the Oprah interview, the infamous Oprah interview. And was it Meghan who felt like they focused on race, not mental illness? Was that her saying that she was surprised or unhappy? Is that Harry?
That doesn't sound familiar.
Okay.
But going back to Tyler Perry, just for a second. Yeah, because I found these notes here. So he said, what drew him to her was he said that he knew from his own experience that family got weird when fame comes. And he said that he likened it to what was happening to them, likened it to domestic violence. He said he saw that they had been abused, cut off, no money, no security, as a way to make you comply and come back.
Oh, that's right. And that's what he saw with his mother.
Yeah. And this struck me. Meghan said that when they left for Canada the last time, she said they really had no plan and they just had 13 suitcases.
Wow.
That's not a lot of stuff.
Yeah. No, that's basically your clothes, toiletries, and maybe a few keepsakes. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a harrowing.
Okay. It was fleeing. Yeah. I mean, because I could also imagine, right? You don't even know Tyler Perry, and you're like, "Oh shit, who do I call? Where do I go? What do I do?"
That's pretty desperate.
I mean, essentially, if you think about it, you're calling a stranger and saying, "I need your help." And I guess it looks like Tyler really, he paid for the security. He stepped in and did all of this for them.
Yeah. And so then even when they moved to Los Angeles, again, it took 2-3 weeks for the paparazzi to find them. Once they found them, there were helicopters flying over. He lived in kind of like a canyon, and there were helicopters flying everywhere. And he said, a lot of celebrities live in this area. I've never seen helicopters here. And they had to build a fence around the property because, again, paparazzi are trying to get close. They don't want them to get into the yard because the yard literally just comes right up next to the canyon when people are coming in. Just total craziness. And then I can't remember after that what would happen or how would they eventually get to Montecito.
Yeah. I don't know how they end up in Montecito per se. That's why I thought Tyler Perry's place was in Montecito. But I think that she has some friend there. Like, again, her connections.
And Oprah.
Oprah, yeah. She manages to figure it out.
Yeah, so they get this very, I don't know if they bought it straight away or if they were just renting it.
No, I think they bought it because Meghan talks about in that article that we were talking about in the last episode, in that episode 12, she mentioned something in that where she was like, "Oh, we saw the house, but we didn't know if we could afford it." And of course, you have to laugh because the house is $14 million. We didn't know if we could afford it. We didn't know if we could do it, but we really wanted to do it. Blah blah blah. So I think maybe they were renting a place briefly, and then they bought a different house. I don't know. I have no idea. But then Philip, was he King Philip or Prince Philip? What was his title? His grandfather.
Oh, Prince. He was Prince. Well, yeah, they called him Prince Philip.
Then why would they call him king if his wife was the queen?
Because Camilla, they call her queen consort. But he was known as Prince Philip, so I don't know.
Maybe. Okay. So he died in April 2021, and he went back, not Meghan, because I think Meghan was very pregnant, right? Because Lilibet was born in June of 2021. So the Daily, and then they talk a little bit, this is sort of winding up at the end. Okay, so this was the part that I was very confused about this whole thing, about the Daily Mail, this Daily Mail lawsuit, and William's role in that, where at the final hours of the Daily Mail lawsuit, someone comes forward, this guy named Jason, who actually claimed to be William's aide. Wait, Jason claims to be Meghan's aide, but he really works for William? Do you remember any of that? Like, it was so weird. I didn't understand it. So I guess at the last hour, someone comes forward and says, Meghan shared the letter with me, so therefore it's not. So tell me, what would this lawsuit that she has with the Daily Mail, right? What would she be suing them for?
I don't know. I really didn't pay attention to it, and they didn't really provide a lot of detail that like made me perk up and
because I feel like they talked about it a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, this was 6 hours. I
Very end.
I tuned out in some places.
Well, yeah. So this Daily Mail, so she won the case.
She won, yeah.
So she sues the Daily Mail, which is a big no-no, right, for leaking the father's letter. Then someone comes forward at the last hour, who this guy, Jason, he claims to be Meghan's aide. He says that Meghan showed him the letter, or that she showed it to him, or that it was, so therefore it is public, right? Because what she's arguing with Daily Mail is
invasion of privacy.
Yeah, that basically you took my mail that was directed to my father and somehow got a hold of it and printed it without my permission. So what would that be?
Like an invasion of privacy.
Oh, okay. That's a law? What would you sue someone? What would it be?
Invasion of privacy.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so this guy comes forward that claims that he saw this letter or whatever.
Okay, so it was already public somehow.
Quote unquote. But Harry knows. He's like, listen, that guy is with my brother. So that was, again, another riff between the two of them. Because it sounds like there have been several riffs that people always think that it's like one thing that broke them up. But I think it was sort of seeing Harry basically seeing like, my wife and I are drowning and you're not even giving me a helping hand. And at the final hour, we're finally on this other side of things and you are trying to ruin this lawsuit for us.
Yeah. And William, I think, was just becoming more and more entrenched in the institution and like breaking promises about things he said he would never do and just started getting real sleazy about it.
Yeah.
And then there was the whole thing about they covering up an alleged affair that William
they didn't talk about this, which I thought was very classy of them, which is they didn't talk about that, but I guess William had an affair with someone
one of Kate's friends.
Yeah, and that's never been confirmed, and that one of the reasons why they kept going back and bashing Meghan and bashing Harry was as a way
to
of
deflect
what's going on.
Yeah, well, I think that was the story swapping, you know, that practice.
Yeah, but I think that maybe I don't know why it just stuck out in my mind, but it was this feeling of, because I think what's so sad about all of this, again, I keep coming back to this, and maybe this isn't really real, but I just feel like when you look at Harry, you look at someone who was like, my God, the person that loved you the most died when you're 12. You meet this woman 20 years later, and you think you have a family. And then you don't. So you think you have a father and a brother that care about you. You think you have all these people, your grandmother, all of this. And that's the only, but that's not the kind of love that you're looking for.
It's not healthy.
It's not a good love. And I think that, when I think about this whole story, all I can think is this is someone who has been free floating around in the world for 20 years without any nurturing,
without grounding.
Yeah. Or just, vent to me or be yourself or do this or be you, any of that. And he finds that and it's there. And I think that it's just really hard and painful to see him realize, and all these other people, they're not for me.
Yeah.
And the narrative that you're painting is that I'm some awful defector that,
with this awful wife who made me do it.
Who made me by the apron string, she by the purse string or something. What's that expression? Like she pulled me along like I'm a dog. And really in the end, it was Harry. It's Harry that wanted something more. And I think wanted what his mother wanted, but could never have. And I'm very happy for him.
Well, yeah, I hope, God, after all of this, Jesus, if anything bad happens, I don't know if I can take it. But what I want to know is why they call each other H and M. Because, it's not just them. Like,
everyone.
Her mother calls him H. Her friends were calling him H.
But I think that's been a known nickname of his for a long time.
Oh, really?
And I think that's how or maybe she came up with the nickname or whatever it is, and that's how he went by, or maybe it was like secretive, H, they're not going to say Harry,
Yeah. Oh, maybe like when they first started dating or something, maybe they just called him H and they just kept calling.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen people in couples like call each other by their first initials. But yeah, usually it's not other people doing it too. So I think that's always been his nickname. Yeah. All right. Well, sorry if you guys were hoping for a big Harry and Meghan bashing session. This is not the podcast. And if you think I'm a fool for believing Casey Anthony and believing Harry and Meghan, then I guess I'm a fool. I don't know what else to say.
Well, now I've gotten so deep into this royal stuff. I was listening to a different podcast where they were talking about, who was it? Oh, gosh, I'm blanking on the author's name. There was sort of a tell-all type book written about
Andrew Morton?
William and Kate. No, it's a female author. Is it Tina Brown?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah. So now I'm like, well, maybe there's probably some interesting stuff in there.
Well, this is the other part about this that's so insane. And again, this is what we do to celebrities as well, is that guess what? We're all human.
Yeah.
We're all human beings. All people are not one thing or another. We are all good and we are all bad. We can be selfish. We can be mad. We can be a diva. We can be an asshole. We can be, we can be all of these things. And the fact that we put these people, just because of their birth, of who they were born to this standard, and that you must be perfect all the time in every aspect of your life and never make a mistake and never do anything wrong, right? This idea that we keep doing it to them, it's insane. It truly is. And so that's the thing is that no one is perfect. No one is any of these things. And, obviously we all like gossip and we all like to William had an affair. Like, ooh, what's that about? Right. But people have affairs. These things happen. It doesn't make William a monster. It's not a great thing to do. It's not good for your marriage or Kate, but it's like, you're not evil, but we make everything so black and white. No one can live up to these standards.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of what I think Harry wants. Is it just seems to me that he wants to be normal. He wants to be, right? His favorite times are when he relishes being alone and no one's looking at him.
Yeah, or being in the military.
Yeah. I mean, he's been like an animal at the zoo his entire life.
Yeah, he doesn't want this life, and that's okay, because there's plenty of other people that can pick up the slack.
Well, and I'm a little annoyed by them, obviously, with my feelings about how they're just, they took $100 million and they're doing this. She did her podcast and they're doing this, and he's an ambassador for these things. But it's a little bit of like, what else are they going to do? Harry cannot go and get a job.
Right.
Like, okay, this was the only thing that you guys were ever, this is, of course, this is what you're going to have to do. Right. Like,
yeah. And I forget did they announce like what their next project is? I feel like there was some announcement that again, it was going to be some sort of documentary type thing, but maybe not featuring them. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think they want to keep making things, and I don't know. I assume Meghan's podcast is done, or maybe does she do like a second season or
I don't know.
Something like that. But I think they do work. I think they do work hard, and they do care about. I was very impressed with Meghan and that she had reached out to that group that had their house burned down.
It was a huge housing complex
that went
the Grenfell fire.
Yeah,
this Grenfell housing complex, high immigrant population, low income.
This is what she showed up. She wanted to see, and again, I think that's her being like, oh, I'm this princess, like. I believe in charity and I believe in these things. This is what I'm going to do. Oh, you don't have enough money. Let's make a cookbook. Okay. How do we do this cookbook? Like, I do understand that they both are like, okay, how do we use our celebrity for good?
Yeah.
Which I appreciate. And I think before I was a little resentful, but I understand it now. I've moved on. See, from episode 12 to whatever episode this is.
Progress.
Tess has been moved.
All right. So before we wrap up, I think that you had something you wanted to
Well, I'm going
to promote.
Yes, I want to promote this. I'm going to promote this on all the podcasts. So this is Tess. I wrote a book. It's called True You, a step-by-step guide to conquering your quarter life crisis. Yes, I am the therapist, and I have compiled the book is essentially partially my story of working in Hollywood and making the change and coming back to the Bay Area, and my own quarter life crisis with the stories of my clients that I've been working with. So for the last decade, I have dedicated all of my time and energy into 20-somethings, into millennials and Gen Zers, and into this time of your life that is really special and unique. So the book is my clients' stories and my story. And at the end of each chapter, I give you the exercises that I use with my clients. So it's a little self-help. It's a little bit of a tale.
Did you say the name of the book?
Yeah, True You.
Okay.
So it's available now on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever books are sold. And I'm super excited about it. It's been a labor of love, and I wrote it in 2020, and I cannot believe it took me until the end of 2022, and now 2023 to get it out into the world. But I'm super excited. So if you like this podcast, you like me, you like what I have to say, definitely check it out for you or for the 20-something in your life.
Great.
I'm going to shorten that in the next episode.
I don't think it was too long. I think it was just right.
Okay.
Well, thank you. And so thank you all for listening. And if you like our podcast, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave a 5-star review. And more importantly, tell a friend.
Yes.
We've also been covering Sister Wives. If you have any Sister Wives fans in your life or you're a fan, you can check that out. And
go if you have any suggestions on documentaries or programs or anything that you'd be interested in, please email us at psychlegalpoppodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, we're looking for some new things. I think we've beaten
no more Harry and Meghan.
We've beaten Harry and Meghan to death here.
I saw that Netflix has a special with Pam Anderson is telling her story.
Oh,
that would be good.
That would be very good. All right, good idea.
Yes.
All right, guys. Till next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.